Elio guys, and welcome back. In today's little video, we're going to be taking a look at B15 because in a previous video I did a B11 guide, so let's go ahead and do B15 while we're at it. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get right into it here. Alright, so the setup for B15 is slightly different versus like B10 and B11, in which a lot of the pressure is kind of built upon your wave clearers and not so much your sappers. You could still technically get away with a 2 sappers / 2 wave clearers composition, but I think it's a little bit risky in this situation because the Astromon in here just have a disgusting amount of resist. Like, it's enough to make anyone sick here. But let's go ahead and start with the unit building, and I will include some screenshots. This came from Mighty Duck over here on Discord as well, of just different compositions that you could use versus what I may show you right here. And also right before we end the video, at the very end of it, I'll show you guys also some sources of comparison in between B11 drop rates and B15 drop rates from none other than Ancient Angel via Discord himself. So let's go ahead and start with the team building. Alright, so here, honestly, you guys shouldn't be surprised the wave clears that I would go for, just because it's simple, fast, and cheap. But obviously if you had Dark Astromon in the same vein, that would be very useful as well. I just choose to go with the world's easiest composition just because these Astromon are accessible to everyone, which is going to be both my Jackas here. Now, I will say that one of my Jackas isn't on a Siphon set, which in this state actually hurts B15 because you want both of them on Siphon sets to make things more stable depending on your composition. However, if you run an alternate composition, it's fine if they aren't both on Siphon sets. I need to get it on a Siphon set, but well, there's a lot of things we need to do, which we're not going to talk about here. But we have our 2 wave clearers here, which makes things nice and simple. And then I'm simply going to go over here and see if I can pick up a sapper of some sort, which we do have Dark Yuki. So I can go and throw in Dark Yuki. Yes, Dark Yuki isn't a dedicated sapper because she has SP Siphon on her 3-star skill and Sap on her 5-star skill, but she is a sapper nonetheless. And these monsters in here are fairly tanky, so having her being able to soak up damage is a plus. And also with that lead of Death Blow, anytime that my Astromon crit, we're going to get some more damage out of them, which is always a nice thing to have. And now to end this off here, depending on your composition and your gem quality, like if both of these Jackas were on a Siphon set, I could reliably do this, but unfortunately since they aren't, I don't recommend doing this unless you're just that good. Which, if I can find him over here, is going to be none other than Light Griffin himself. Now this, in my opinion, is one of the better teams for B15. It's super risky though, because once again, if Jackas both aren't on a Siphon set, the issue comes from the first 2 waves, in which Light Griffin will unfortunately be the target of all of those Dark Astromon, and they hit like a mother trucker. He's going to just pass away. It's unfortunate he's going to pass away, but you really need his resistance down, not so much for the waves, because you have Jackas in there as wave clearers, but you need resistance down for the Golem, which, if he isn't there to do his resistance down, he's basically a waste of a slot. But if both your Jackas were on Siphon sets, that would be perfectly fine. If they aren't though, there's obviously different compositions that you can kind of run with this. One that I do in particular, which isn't by any means like super spicy, it's just something that works, and it does count as something that's slower than what a team like that would produce, but it still clears out just fine, is one where I bring in Light Suck as my HP healer, basically, just to kind of heal up everyone else as we go through. And then also I slide in essentially just a sapper once again. So even though I don't have the SP gain as I would normally if I had both of my Jackas on Siphon set, I do have Light Suck in there, especially with her HP lead, to kind of boost up the health of everyone else just in case, and kind of prevent some death going on here. Am I saying that you have to run this composition? No. If you had a different Siphoner, like let's not use Dark Yuki for example, let's say for instance you had my Wet Artemis, if I can find her. Something like that would work as well. But the establishment that I've come up with so far is that B15 is dedicated towards 2 wave clears at least. You have to have 2 wave clears because you want to get to those tanky waves as fast as possible. 1 dedicated sapper, And depending on your team composition, you could also run something that's also been interesting, where you bring Amon in with discernment on their lead, and then that helps your sapper to get their saps to stick. I haven't tried this out, but in theory it could work as well. Obviously, if I had a later skill, that would be more optimal. But you could possibly run your Wood Hohenheim here as well, because she provides resistance down and sap, which isn't a discernment lead, but you get the same effect as Light Griffin in this situation, but you don't have to worry about her being targeted in herself. Other Astromon that I see being used here as well is obviously your Darkmons. Like if you had Dark Vamp, you could have Dark Vamp as your sapper, just hopefully he's booked up. You could also run in here with your Dark Tina as a wave clearer. Who else? Dark Hana could be useful too because of her Zeal buff, just making sure everyone gets their SP topped off and her discernment lead. This seems a little bit haphazard though, because you only have, you have 2 dedicated wave clearers. So something like this in theory should work as well. I haven't tested it out, but I'm saying it should work depending on your gem quality. I'm trying to think of what other team compositions that we could run here, because it's fairly simple. Obviously Draka is just a nice Astromon to have with her 100% puncture right off the gate here, but there's other Astromon. This one came from Mighty Duck himself though, and I 100% stole it, where you could bring in your Hana, and she's going to be your discernment lead, and she also has what is that, resilience and something else, if I'm remembering correctly. Yep, resistance down and resilience. So not only does she have her discernment lead, not only can she heal your squad, but she can also apply resistance down to the Golem, hopefully at the end of the stage. It's literally just a win-win every way you look at it. Slower times, but what is slow versus stable? Would you rather be 10 seconds slower and know that your runs are 100% good to go, or would you rather be 10 seconds faster and know that your runs fail half of the time? I'm going to go ahead and recommend stable, especially for people just breaking into here. And then obviously having Dark Tina right there, a Fire Draka. I haven't tested Fire Siegfried. You could always slide him in there if that's literally all that you have. But if you made it to B15, I would hope that you have at least one Evo 3 Fire Draka. There's Purse as well. She counts as a wave clearer. It's just that puncture, once again, once you get to the boss, is just a very nice thing to have. There's Dark Mona too. I'm not sure how well she scales up, but I'm sure that she's fine with that. But that's pretty much it for B15. I don't think there's anything else for me to rant on here, so I will include some examples of different team composition that you can use that once again come from Mighty Duck. So let's go ahead and show you some of those real quick. And right before we wrap things up though, remember I had stated that I did have some information in terms of golems from none other than Ancient Angel himself via Discord, and he has done some research here. I do have an Excel spreadsheet pulled up of the research that he's done. But essentially, he has ran Golems B11 and also Golems B15. He's run Golems B11 a total of 2,586 times, and he's also run Golems B15 a total of 4,733 times. So nearly double for Golems B15. But I mean, this is information isn't like 100% confirmed, but we can tell relatively from the amount of runs that have been done that this information does provide at least a basis in terms of speculation of what benefits you get from running which dungeon, which also is kind of based on how fast you can clear out that said Golem's dungeon, because B15 does cost more energy than B11, and B11 is obviously more accessible and just easier to do in general here. But for Golems 11, for example, the 5-star gem rate from there is a roughly 80% drop rate, so 80% of the time you should expect a 5-star gem of some type. I'm not sure on subs, he doesn't go into detail about subs, but 80% chance you're guaranteed to get a 5-star gem, but also for B11 there's a 12.72% chance, roughly a 13% chance for you to acquire a 6-star gem. And then the gem rate is also roughly 7% as well. Well, the egg rate is roughly 7% as well. So essentially running Golem's B11, you're guaranteed on average a 13% rate of getting a 6-star gem. Moving on to Golem's B15 though, the 5-star gem rate of that is roughly 75. I guess you could technically say 74.5 if you want to be exact for the 5-star gem rate. But what's different about B15 versus B11 is that gem star rate for 6 stars goes up to 19% versus your 13%, roughly a 6% increase. So let's say in theory out of 100 runs and all of these calculations are correct, you would have roughly 19 of your 6-star gems from a B15 run versus 13, which I honestly would say isn't that big of a difference. Like it, depending especially on your clear times, isn't that big of a difference. What's odd though is that the egg rate in B15 is just slightly lower than the egg rate in B11. So it's really up to you to kind of decide what you want to do with that information right there, meaning that obviously the 6-star gem rate for B15 is better than B11, but once again, depending on your clear time, the biggest issue you may find is that B15 takes me 25 seconds longer than B11 and it costs me more energy, so I may just run B11. In my case, I've been kind of flip-flopping back and forth, just seeing what works for me, and I don't really see a big difference in between both of those. One of them costs less energy, but if you're like hounding for gold, then I would definitely recommend B11. If you're going towards more of gem quality, because a percent increase is a percent increase, B15 is fine if you can clear it stable like, but as long as you're doing B11 or B15 at the end of the day, then I think you're doing a really good job. But shout out to Agent Angel for coming up with that information and recording his runs, and also the Mighty Duck on Discord for kind of posting some of these teams that I stole from him to share with you guys. But that's pretty much it, you guys. Consider subscribing if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys in the next one.